Welcome to Real Life Mentoring, where we explore real life issues to help you make an authentic difference in the world.
Hi, it's Chris and Christina. We're back continuing our series on the 6 areas, what happens if you neglect them. And we're going to be talking about the emotional component. Before we get into that, I just want to remind you who we are and what we do. So we train and equip adults to become holistic, effective mentors in the church and business, impacting individuals, families, communities into the next generation. And we are talking about the 6 areas. Chris, remind us what those are, and we're going to get into the discussion of if we specifically neglect the area of our emotions.
Imagine you had a trusted mentor in your life.
Just imagine.
And he or she sat down and said, look, I want to walk this journey with you, and it's going to be good together. Mm-hmm. In order to do this, we're going to need to talk about every aspect of your life. Mm-hmm. These are the 6 areas that we focus on. Spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, relational, professional, and or educational. They all impact one another. Mm. They're all important, and they have a place and a purpose. And the ability, the opportunity rather, to talk about these openly with a trusted mentor can be an incredible experience and a way to grow and develop as a person.
And we've talked about these a lot. If you'll go back over the course of the 4 seasons, we've talked about the 6 areas and the importance of health, what health looks like. But today, we're coming from a little bit of a different standpoint. What happens if you neglect this area? So we're specifically looking at emotions, and neglect could look like this. Having no name for your emotions, the inability to perhaps say, I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling really angry. The ability not to process your emotions. No repairing your emotions. Having no emotional vocabulary for what you're feeling. Not having any safe outlets to actually express your feelings. Sometimes you see this a lot in children who live in volatile situations. There's all this stuff, but there's no safe place for it to come out.
Okay, I want to share something personal.
Yeah.
This is not being critical of my parents who have since died several years ago. It's saying facts that impacted me and can still impact me today if I'm not deliberate about addressing them. So I was not taught how to express my emotions because we weren't really allowed to talk about them. Mm-hmm. So this is something that happened. And I say this because some of you are listening to this episode and you're going, I experienced something similar.
Yeah.
So when we we realize something is not healthy, then we can make some changes, right? Mm-hmm. So I would try to express my emotions to my parents. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they would say things like, oh, that doesn't bother you. Well, but when you're an adult, and I've had to take a look at this as well because we've raised 3 daughters together. When you're younger, when you're a child, something bothers you that doesn't bother an adult because you're at different development levels, right, in life. But I'd be told, oh, that doesn't bother you, or that doesn't hurt, or I'm sorry that I'm not perfect. If I tried to express my emotion to my mom or dad that they had hurt me some way or stressed me, they might say something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so unfortunately, I did not have a place to express my emotions honestly. Right. And because of that, you start keeping them inside, and it impacts other areas. That's a consequence.
So as a 64-year-old man, a consequence for not going back to those places in childhood that you weren't able to express, you could be dealing with anxiety from maybe some unprocessed fear or depression from things that you never really got to process. What about the inability to empathize? Maybe the treatment you were given as a child, you give to other people. Repeating unhealthy patterns. Your parents, oh, that didn't hurt you, and then you say that to your kids. I'm not saying that you've done
right,
it,
or grow up. That's so effective. Someone's expressing their emotions. Now, people could be immature in some ways. Guess what? We all are at times, and we hopefully grow and develop. But if you express an emotion to me, and I go, oh, grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
sounds like you have a problem.
It doesn't work so well.
Right. Some of the consequences, though, for not really exploring and going into and nurturing your emotions would be emotional, either feeling overwhelmed emotionally or underwhelmed or numb emotionally. You just choose not to express any emotion. I love this concept of having chronic emotional stress. What would
You
that?
love that?
I love that concept because I think it names
You mean addressing it?
addressing it.
Okay.
I love bringing it out in the open so that people can go, oh, I think that may be me. But constant anxiety or irritability, sadness, emotional numbness, feeling overwhelmed easily, reduced enjoyment of things once enjoyable. All of those are signs of chronic emotional stress. Now, are you bad if you have it? No. Recognize it and do something about it. Again, the whole purpose of this podcast is to realize there are consequences should you choose not to examine the emotional part of who you are. How does that show up in mentoring? Well, statements like, I'm just so tired, or I don't know why I reacted that way, or I don't feel much of anything right now. If you're a mentor and you hear your mentee say those things, that could be some signs that they've neglected or they're experiencing some chronic emotional stress. And we've said this before, but a lot of times a mentor can see patterns, see statements before the person can themselves. So why does it matter? I love this statement that emotions are data, not enemies.
Okay, say that again.
Emotions are data, not enemies, meaning emotional health impacts relationships and spiritual life, but your emotions are data. Oh, I've overreacted here. That's some data telling me something's off course. I just witnessed a terrible tragedy and I'm not feeling anything. That's data telling me,
Something's off
something's
or something
off.
needs to be addressed.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, but sometimes having a $5,000 response to a 50-cent issue, you way overreact or maybe way underreact. That's data saying, ding, 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 something's askew, something's off here. Chris, there's a wonderful verse that addresses this very thing about our emotions. Psalm 34:18. Do you want to read that for us?
Yes, so Psalms is in the Bible in the Old Testament. Psalm 34, verse 18. It's very simple, but it's actually profound. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. I just want you to think about that for a moment. You have been brokenhearted at some point, so have I, and it feels lonely. It feels overwhelming sometimes. It feels like nobody understands or cares. I'm going to read that again. The Lord, the God of the universe, guys, is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. There's never been a man in my life when I was brokenhearted as a boy, a young man, my age now, never been a man who rescued me, who told me, I am close with you as you're brokenhearted. I'm going to walk with you. There's been a few conversations, some relationships, but a specific man to do that. But yet it's always been God.
Yeah. Well, and I love how the Bible is full of examples about emotional honesty in the Psalms from what you read. I mean, David is so emotionally honest. He's angry, he's mad, he's overjoyed. But then there's chapters in the Bible like Job where there is some major emotional honesty, like, I regret the day I was even born. And then if we look to Jesus, oh my goodness, we see him angry. We see him happy at weddings. We see him so stressed out, he begins to sweat drops of blood. So the Bible is full of examples of emotions. Emotions are not bad. What emotions can become a problem left neglected.
And allowed to control how we think and act and speak.
Right. So some practical framework, if you're a mentor for yourself, helping somebody name and identify emotions is huge. Asking people to reflect upon, tell me about your childhood. What did that feel like? Sometimes just going back to a place and giving an experience a name, naming it, reflecting on it.
Okay, you mentioned childhood. This is normal. You can be a grown adult and you start reflecting on something in childhood that you think is well, I've dealt with that. I'm good to go, and I've moved forward. And yet, it may cause you anger may rise up,
Yeah.
or a sense of
Sadness.
or frustration. Don't be hard on yourself.
Well,
Realize injustice, abuse, things like that happen, and they do stir our emotions. And so, when you rethink on something, I can be angry about something that happened in my childhood. And yet, it doesn't have to control me today. But to say, well, I'm not angry anymore. No, that when I think about what happened, it does bring up that anger, but it's not controlling me. Is that fair?
right. And the whole concept here is not to neglect your emotional self. So you go back, you reflect, you do, you name emotions and it's bothersome. There's no shame or guilt in that. Emotions are data. That tells you, oh, there needs to be some help given or some attention given in this area. Maybe I need to see a counselor. Maybe I just need to go back and process that with a friend. Emotions are data. And so the whole point of this conversation is don't neglect your emotions.
Almost, I know what you're saying when you say emotions are data. It almost sounds a bit sterile, but emotions will show me some things. Okay, this is what happened. This is, okay, how you feel. Do you know what I'm saying? It feels
Right.
like it's data, but
It's semantics. That is data. The data is showing you, it's an indicator, it's a light on your dashboard. Hey, things are off. Things are not normal. Things are irregular. Let's pay attention to them.
and yet we don't want to do this. We don't want to ignore them. So if I'm angry about something or I'm sad or depressed about something, you say, Chris, how are you doing? I say, oh, I'm okay. To appease you or to not, to be stressed about opening up to you, that it's just going to hinder me. It's going to, as we say, it's going to cause some negative consequences if I don't get honest about my emotion.
So one way to get honest about that is to practice the 6 areas tools. So you can do it with your mentee. You can, if you're listening right now, look at your emotional component of who you are and then rate your emotions. Am I neglecting the emotional component of who I am? And then give yourself a rating. Ooh, I think I'm probably not doing so good, or I am doing well. Ask yourself why that rating, and then what would it take to move that? If you're a 5, what would it take to move it to a 6? Maybe it's just name what you feel today and tell somebody else or tell God. When I think about 8 years old and such happened, I still am angry about that. Okay. So let's do something about it. Don't neglect it. Tell somebody, tell God. That's a practical step.
And don't be ashamed or feel like you've been left out. If you've never had another person ask you these kinds of questions, today's a new day.
Yeah.
To say, hey, if your name is Joe, I want to talk to you because I care about you. I'm mentoring you, or I want to talk to you about, tell me about some emotions you had growing up or some ones you have today. Do you know how to process them well? Mm-hmm. Do you know how to reflect on them and to move through them? Do they control you? Men will tell me many times, no one on the planet has ever asked me these kinds of questions. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I've never even thought about talking about this topic.
We always want to remind you that these 6 areas are interrelated. If I neglect my emotions, it's probably going to show up. I know for myself, when I have neglected my emotions, it shows up physically. I'm really tired. I may get a headache. It messes with my stomach, which then I don't want to be relational with people. We cannot isolate, well, I'm just going to not deal with these emotions and I'm going to live the rest of my life okay without, it will catch up with us. We're so fearfully and wonderfully made. If we don't deal with the emotions, the other 5 areas will be affected. Okay, Chris, think about what we talked about today. Is there anything that stands out, anything you want to readdress or point out before we close?
As a human, I do not enjoy negative emotions. No one does. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, we're going to deal with them in life. Recently, we attended a funeral of a family member of ours, and he had been ill for a while. He knew he was dying. Not that helps, but there's still grief. Mm-hmm. The emotion is still stirred, and I spoke at the funeral, and as we talked with family members, I left that funeral that day. Don't misunderstand me when I say this. I felt good, at peace about things. And then you go, okay, here we move forward. It was either a day or two after that, I wake up and I felt kind of depressed. I felt sad. I felt emotional. And I thought, but I felt fine the other day. Emotions are funny that way.
Yeah.
you think they're good to go, and then they show up again, or just
Darn those emotions.
or you start reflecting some more, and you go, man, that really is sad, or man, that situation made me angry, whatever it is. So that we would not be surprised and give ourselves some grace when we struggle with them, maybe a day later, a month, a year later, whenever it would be.
Anything else?
That's good for me.
So the 6 areas dealing specifically about our emotions. Thank you for listening today. We know you have lots and lots of options out there, but if you would like and subscribe to our podcast so you are updated on when we come out with a new one. Also, if you would like to share this with a friend, this was helpful to you. If you'd like to contribute to producing content like this, go to FahrenheitMentoring.com. There's a podcast tab. Just click on that and we'd be happy to receive your donation. Today, our sponsor is the Aaron Reese Agencies. His agency offers auto, life, home, and business insurance, and they strive to build, are you ready for it, real-life relationships with all their customers. And we are customers. We're clients of the Aaron Reese Company, and we could not be more satisfied. If you are looking for an insurance company, call them today, 405-773-5500. Again, that's the Aaron Reese Agency. As always, thank you so much for listening to the Real Life Mentoring Podcast.